So just so you know that we are now live, so anything you say will be heard around the world.
Taken down and used in evidence.
So I think it's just you know, a good way to start is just to think of positive motivation as usual. No reason why this meeting should be any different. And turn myself down. So I thought in Nalanda we had this nice tradition where we would start any community meeting with reciting the Buddha's mantra. We do this at our monthly meeting, so I thought maybe we could do that here. Reciting the Buddha's mantra 3 times, just and during that time we just think of, you know, as high aspiration as you can. You know, the ideal one would be to reach enlightenment for the sake of all others, sentient beings, so that they could become enlightened. And all the stages up to that point, you know, whichever level you're ready for, at least, you know, to become a kinder, wiser person and help those around us. At least not to harm them, that would be the best, you know. So as you recite that mantra, just try and think of something positive along those lines. And the mantra is Tayata Om Muni Muni Maha Munaye Soha. Okay. Tayata Om Muni Muni Maha Munaye Soha. Tayata Om Muni Muni Maha Munaye Soha. Tayata Om Muni Muni Maha Munaye Soha. So welcome everybody to our community meeting about the community. So I'm just buried in wires at the back here. So for those people who are watching on live on YouTube, I'm behind the screen. You know, it's just controlling the keyboard. So I am here. So and we have a community here of members, a mixed community of trustees and students and volunteers. So a nice crowd. And I'm just going to go through for just 30 minutes or so, how long it takes, just to go through the presentation, explaining where we are with our building project and how far we've come, and then the exciting news, you know, that we're announcing today. And then there'll be a chance for people here to ask questions. And if people on the internet have questions, I'm not sure if I'll be able to see those, but like as I mentioned as we go along, there's lots of places where you can give us feedback, emails and phone numbers, so we'll look at that at the very end. So it was a meeting we had in this very room about 18 months ago to talk about our strategic plan for the centre, 16 to 19. That was our kind of dates. And one of the main things that came out of that strategic planning meeting as a community was that we felt now is the right time for us to start raising funds to purchase our own building. And interesting enough, the second point here on the slide says to have at least 50,000 by August 2019. So we did quite well considering now we have 171,000, which is way above what we thought we'd have by now. And we're already looking at buildings, you know, so this is quite, you know, it happened a lot quicker than I expected. I don't know what everyone else thought, but and that's obviously a sign that we're doing, you know, powerful work, and the karma we're creating is very positive and having an effect. So so shortly after that, we decided then that we were going to look for some properties. And I thought maybe just the first thing to show was how the search has gone. You know, what we've done over the last kind of 8 to 10 months, especially looking at properties. Hey, come in. So we're just going to go through a few kind of options now that we looked at. And here's the first one. Here's one of our trustees, Jay, in the middle there. And this was a property we found in the city centre. And obviously our first goal was to try and keep us close to what we have now, city centre, you know, We originally, if you remember, we were looking for 750,000, and it became clear that this was going to be quite a difficult task. Speaking to agents and things, to have property in city centre was quite difficult. But here's the one we found. It was a restaurant in the basement, restaurant on the ground floor, and then 3 floors above that. But the difficulty with this one was the staircase went all the way up the middle, so there was no large open space. It was a perfect location, but the building needed a lot of work, and there was no actually a reasonable space. We could have had a gomper, practically speaking. So that was one we discounted. Here's another one, which was not far from here, actually, from the city centre. This was actually, you can see here just on the notice, 5,000, just over 5,000 square foot. Here we have about 1,000 square foot, so it wasn't a lot more space, but city centre. But that was 750,000 for not much more space. So, and inside it was quite small. So personally, I didn't think it was worth all the extra fundraising for not much more space. And here's another option. We went a bit further this time, up to North Leeds, Headingley. Was anybody here then we went to look at this building? No?
Still live next door to it.
Oh, did you? Okay. It used to be a church, obviously, and a developer bought it about 3 years ago and has since made flats in the basement, 4 separate flats in the basement area. And there's going to be more flats at the back of it. But the main church hall and the lobby of the church was up for sale. Developer put it on sale, actually more than he bought the whole building for, so he's going to make a packet. But we looked inside, and it was a massive space, obviously, but very difficult to heat. A lot of work was needed. The price was expensive. It was reduced now to about 350,000, but it was just only one big space. Massive work was needed doing to it. It was just, and it was listed. Some of the parts were listed, so yeah, it was just it could be too complicated. Here's another one in the city, near the city centre. This is about 10-15 minutes walk from here towards, where is it? Sorry? Kirkstall, thank you. This was actually by our current agent, Mawson's. 3 floors, about 1,000 square foot on each floor, which sounds good, but in the details, as we approached it, there was a covenant, a legal document in the building that says it couldn't be bought by a religious organisation. Yeah. So that was out, unfortunately. So then, it started to become clear at this point that actually right in the city centre might not work, so let's look a bit further. Let's look like 10-15 minutes walk from the centre, just roughly around the ring road. Goshe Tashi said early on that maybe we should think about 15 minutes walk from where we are now from the train station. So, but it became clear that we'd have to have a lot of funds to do that. It wasn't just 750,000 as we first thought. It was going to be $1 million to $2 million. These are the kind of properties that were going around here. So we went a bit further. So here we went to Hunslet, which is further south. It's about 25 minutes walk. It's quite away from here. And it was a sports club. We never actually looked around it, but it looked promising, this little hall and large car park. But 4,000 square foot, 250,000. We just felt it was too far, to be honest. It was a good half an hour's, schlep from here. So we thought another option might be to look at properties that were like houses we could convert. So here's one in Hare Hills. This is north. I think it should be 2 L's in Hare Hills. There's North Leeds. Hi, come on in. This space looked okay. The price is 250,000. It was only 2,000 square foot. We have 1,000 here, so we're going to be doubling our space. And there wasn't really an option here for a cafe or a social area or a gompa. It was all, as you know, surgeries. This was a doctor's surgery, very small rooms. So that didn't seem right either. So we went to further south again. This time this is only, Holbeck is South Leeds, and this is actually quite close to the city centre. This is 10 minutes on a bus, 10 minutes in the car, 20 minutes walk, depending on which side of Leeds you come from the city centre. And I found this by accident, and then I phoned the agent. And they said, "Oh no, this has been taken off the market." And I said, "Oh, it's a shame, because on the document it looked quite amazing. I really was interested to see it." And then so something kind of said, "Well, just pursue it a bit further, if they're not going to help." And so I found the owner, Joe Brown's on the front here, as you see, was a clothing manufacturer who owned the building. So I contacted him, Joe, called Tony Brown, and he said, "Yes, it's still for sale. The agent's made a mistake, so I'll show you around." So there we go. And then this is where it got interesting, because this building really grabbed my attention. So I kind of then did some more research on it. So this is the building in question. This is kind of why we've drawn this meeting together to look at this property. Clyde Works is the name of the building, built in 1935, as you can see at the top there. It was a massive space. This is kind of what attracted me, first of all. How could, you know, something like this be so massive and yet reasonably priced for near city centre? 33,000 square foot for those people who can't read at home on YouTube. Office spaces we could use straight away. Asking price 450, as you said. It's a poor area though. Holbeck, you know, has a reputation of being poor and underdeveloped, etc. So I can see there were some obstacles here. And so as I started to kind of ask the trustees about this and bring it to their attention as a possibility for us, there was lots of kind of things that came up here, which also might come up for you as you kind of explore this with us. Of course, the trustees and myself have had 2 months already to think about this project. I first viewed this right the first week of January, and here we are now 2 months later. So we've already gone through a lot of this process. So now I'm kind of just informing everyone that, so you have a chance to catch up and look at some of these points too. So transport links was a concern for us. We wanted more research on the transport. It was felt that, you know, maybe the buses weren't providing a regular enough service to get there. Our Dharma classes, if we move out of the city centre, what happens to our classes? You know, we're going to be losing our lunchtime crowd, I would think, you know, if not in the city centre, and maybe some of our evening classes will be more difficult. The state of the building, we needed to know more about the building because it's massive. You know, can we take on this big project? And we need to know more about the state of the building. What kind of volunteers would be needed to run it? We're talking about residential live-in volunteers. I think that would be needed. Financial options, we need to consider all the finances carefully. And the local community, that was something that I kept, as I kind of talked to more and more people about it, this was a major concern actually, the community. And as you'll see on the next slide, there's a local school, a primary school just opposite. We talked to some of the local businesses, I'll mention that a bit later. So all in all, this information was just kind of floating around. We weren't really sure what direction to take it and if it was a go or not. So the trustees met and talked about it, and then we decided actually we need more information. You know, it's not enough. We don't have enough to decide right now to go any further. So then we decided we'd look a bit further. This is the area where we are. You can just see in the top right-hand corner there is Leeds main train station, and some train lines going around it. And actually, it's kind of encircled by motorways and train stations. Now look at it, train lines.
Is that black mark where the building is?
Exactly, yes, that black mark in the bottom centre there. And although Holbeck is a small community, actually, it seems it's only about a few thousand, 2,000 or 3,000 residents in Holbeck. Actually, from what I heard, Holbeck goes a lot further than that. There's something called the Holbeck Urban Village, which is just below the river, which is part of the South Bank Regeneration Project. And then as you go further down, we come out of the South Bank Regeneration Project, but that has its own neighbourhood plans I'll explain later. This is the kind of immediate area. See, there's the school next door, primary school. Opposite, directly on the west side of the building, there's some more industrial units there. And then behind there, of course, is the playing field allotments and then the motorway. Now this is an aerial view from Google. Copyright Google. You can see this. So this kind of slatted, I'll show you the area. So we're talking about this area here, up to there, and then back here. So you see, it's just massive, isn't it? I mean, like jamming, like our space now would be something like that on one floor. So this area here has 2 floors, then there's the big warehouse space here, which is 1 floor, and then this area has 2 floors. It all slopes uphill. This is like downhill, and then this goes up.
What are those little things to the north? Is that car park? There's no. That's the
So there are other businesses. So there's another business directly north of us, and then.
The building. It's not.
Oh yeah, that's another building. Yeah, it's not a car park. Yeah. There's a little green quadrangle in the middle there. That must belong to one of the other businesses. So here is a floor plan which I made of roughly the space we're talking about here. This on the west side, the left side is the office, 2 office floors about 4,000 square foot each.
Square feet, not square meters.
Square meters, sorry.
I think
There should be square feet, not
Yeah,
square meters.
yeah,
That's
yeah,
my
that
mistake.
That
would be too big.
bigger.
Yeah, sorry, square foot, not square meters. Then we would be taking on quite a project. And then there's a large warehouse space there, and then the two smaller space, that's like on top of each other, those two orange squares and the two blue squares. Just to give you an idea. So here's some of the pictures from inside. This is the lobby area as you go in. This is how the previous owners, the previous business had it laid out as a lobby. You come in and then there's some steps downstairs there to this area here. So on the left here there's a large long room which could be a gompa or a cafe. There's some toilets and some of the space to the left there. And then here, this corridor, look at this corridor, it goes quite a way down there, and there's 6 offices on the right. There's one at the very end there on the left as well. And there's another one to the right here which you can't see, and then there's another space behind that as well which is underneath the stairs, another office space, and there's a boiler room behind us as well. So it's quite vast. This is the downstairs large hall room. Windows on the west there. Obviously it's a bit of a mess now, but you know, the owners kind of use it temporarily and leave a mess. They had a Christmas party there or something. This is one of the offices on the ground floor in reasonable condition, as much as we could tell. Moving to the first floor of the office space, you come up to this lovely room which is they used as like a chill out room in the previous business. One possibility might be a library space here, I'm not sure. Then there's another large communal space upstairs. One option, as I thought here, was a gompa upstairs, and there's 3 rooms upstairs, 3 like office spaces. And then next door to all that is this massive warehouse space. Here we are, look, it's huge. 15,000 square foot on this large space, and then it goes through to a smaller area here, about 5,000 square foot, and then on above that is this area here again, massive space which they've sectioned off for photo shoots and things. A little video here that somebody took, I can't remember if it was me or Jay, of the area. I'm just looking through looking around the main warehouse space. They've got a big heater in there here, you see in the middle. The floor needs some work to be, you know, there's some metal grating that needs screwing down properly. And then this goes through to the other warehouse space next door to it. This is the trustees looking round, by the way. You may recognise some faces here. This guy in the brown jacket's the owner, Tony, explaining the building to us. So it must be Jay on the camera here. He's going to look at the roof now. It was dark, obviously. And all the warehouse space has this slanted glass roof, so in the winter, obviously we've got to think about the heating, but in the summer it might be too hot. So, you know.
Sawtooth is typical.
Oh really? Okay.
Typical sort of like factory.
Okay.
To let more light in.
Right, right. So then I just thought I'd go through some of these points then. As I mentioned, the first trustees meeting we had some questions, and then as time went on we had more answers, more research. So this is some of the information that we found. Transport links. We found that there were buses every 10 to 15 minutes throughout the day. For example, on a Monday night meditation class in the evening that finishes at 7:30, there will be buses every 10 to 15 minutes way up to 9, 9:30, 10 o'clock. They get less as we go along, obviously.
Whereabouts in Leeds do they go to? Do you know?
Eyre Street, just around the station. Here, Infirmary Street, Vicar Lane. Well, I'm talking about from the city centre in terms of the train station.
Yeah.
That's the times I looked at. Obviously, if you come from somewhere else, then you'd have to do that research yourself.
Yeah.
I didn't think of all the possibilities. There's free parking around there, and plenty of it, of course. We looked around, you know, the area at different times of day to see, you know, Ken was looking at, you know, if there was any broken car glass around the streets, you know, as an indicator of crime. But we talked to one business owner, for example, next door called, what are they called, Party Shop or something, I can't remember the name now, Fun Shack I think they're called. And he said he's only had his car broken into once in 12 years. He parks it on the street, he found it reasonably safe. Very nice cars around there, you know. So it's not what you think, you know, about Holbeck. That's what my point here. Dharma classes is an important thing here because, you know, if we would lose our lunchtime meditations and our Monday evening meditation, for example, then, you know, that'd be quite sad because they're one of our most popular classes. So solutions for that.
You don't necessarily lose them, you just get a different style of crowd and different type of people.
Right. I mean, for example, we don't know, but I mean, it's just what we would estimate, you know, our best guess. So one option here is that we keep a city link, actually. We rent somewhere for half an hour during the week, like Swarthmore, or there's somewhere else that's offered us free space. We keep a link here, but our main operation is obviously still where the centre is going to be. That would be one option. Another option is that, you know, we adjust our programme so that we do more weekend, more retreats, so we kind of compensate, you know, with the Dharma classes in a different way. I don't know, there's lots of options, you know. So we'd have to adjust wherever we go.
Room to have two classes going on at the same time with no
We can have,
so you can
exactly, yes. Yeah.
Can you afford to heat a building that's that size on 3 different floors?
Heating, so that's a good question. We talked to the owner about heating, and he said, for example, it's surprisingly low, just the office area, £200 a month for heating.
That's just for the office area, is it?
Yes, we're not talking about the warehouse space.
Need to heat the warehouse space unless you are using
Right.
it for an event, which would be quite sort of
Yeah.
infrequent, I would have thought.
Yes, yeah. I mean, the winter, obviously in the summer, the sunlight through the glass roof would heat it anyway. It's just in the winter we would need a heater there, for example, if we had big event. Yeah.
If it could be, if you could put
Solar panels.
If you could put thermal glass in there, you know, high performance double glazing. I don't know how much that would cost, but it would eliminate the need for heating altogether, probably.
Very nice, very nice. Yeah, I'm really keen for us to look at, you know, sustainable, you know, energy use.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
How much noise do you get from the motorway? And
It's too far to hear any motorway noise. Yeah, yeah.
quiet?
It's,
Very quiet,
yeah.
actually.
yeah.
Yeah, there are new residences building up in the Holbeck Urban Village area.
Mm-hmm.
Quite a residential area there. There's
Still
also
away
in
from the
Holbeck,
urban
the old town centre there, that they've got that new development with flats in and things. They do a lot of things at night there as well, and they go to use the allotments nearby. So
Right, right.
there's a community that may be interested in us already there. But I'm wondering how much we would save if we could put events on there rather than in a hotel or something.
Well, that would obviously save us. Yeah, absolutely, yeah.
That would be an
Yeah.
option.
Save a lot of money.
And we also could, of course, sublet, couldn't we, if we found something?
Well, this is something we'll come to. Yeah, it's on my next slide. Hiring out options. Yeah. So yeah, I mean, Dharma classes is very important. We have to make sure we don't lose our aims. The aims of the centre are to promote meditation and Buddhist principles and preserve the Mahayana tradition. So we've got to make sure that in our plan we can still do that. I did report to the trustees that I think that's still viable, even though we're not in the city centre. So I'm happy to share that with people if they're interested. State of the building, we took a builder with us around one time. There were some guttering issues. There's a leak on one side. We can't tell until we take the survey course, which is further down the line, if there's any major issues. So that may become an obstacle. We don't know until we've investigated further. If the roof needs replacing and that might cost another 100,000, then it's probably out of the picture.
How long has it been on the market for?
3 years.
And it was just a factory?
Yes, yeah. It's still being used on and off by the owner. He heats it regularly and he's used it for his clothes business.
We use a fair chunk of the warehouse space still.
Yeah. Here's some more reports. Volunteers. Obviously, we need more volunteers to cope with the change of use. So I've contacted Leeds University already, and for example, we've already had 3 CVs for a post here. I just advertised 2 weeks ago, so that was quite quick. They put me in touch with some other volunteer organisations where I can get people to help us run a cafe or a shop or, you know, general maintenance of the building. So there's lots of options there, I think, because we have to be careful. You know, we want to have a small community here, and if we're going to go into a bigger space, where do all these extra people come to run it? You know, so that's something I'm very keen we don't lose track of as we go. Local community. So this is one of the sticking points here. It's a poor area. So as I say, we talk to local businesses and they seem quite positive about the area in terms of security. We've been around, the trustees have been around over the last few months at different times of the day. Andrew Askis, for example, he's been there at night and walked around a bit, and we've been there at various times. Very quiet actually, you don't see many people walking around at all. There's a school just opposite, as I say. Unjin and Bob went to talk to the headmistress there. And And Bob, seemed quite, she seemed very keen for us to go there because there's a lot of community need, which is one of Bob's concerns, but it might be something we can do to help the community there, which is obviously very, very, it's important for us to do that.
Yeah.
But we don't want to get overburdened and lose sight of our Dharma aims. So, that's going to need some weighing, scaling carefully as we go along. But yes, we should provide, space for the community, whatever they need, Here's something happening in the area which just got voted in. For 5 years, Holbeck's been putting together this neighbourhood plan, and just this month, on the 1st of the month, they approved it. The residents approved it. So there's this is the website if you're interested to look further. The area that we're in, we could be in, Clyde Works, is an area of mixed use for planning, so that would be helpful because we want to apply for residential, commercial, and well, I'm not sure industrial, but yeah. So a mixed use was very helpful for us. We'd have to explore further, So, so points to consider here are, we'd need more funds so we could buy it outright. So depending on what the offer is accepted, we would need to raise an extra 100,000 to 150,000. So if you remember, the property is on the market for 450,000. For example, if you would take 350,000, it's a lot to ask, of course, but you may. Then we'd need to raise an extra 100,000, so our mortgage isn't too much every month. We don't want to be landed with a massive mortgage, especially if we're unsure about the area and our projects, how long they're going to take off. So I was really keen to stress that I don't want to take on a project personally myself, having a big mortgage every month that I might not be able to cover. So the more funds we can raise to buy it outright, the better it is for us, healthily. And we don't have to worry if we don't make money, we can have more time to work on it. So this is our best guess so far. We need 100 to 150,000. Running costs would run into a small deficit in the first year, then a small profit from year 2, increasing year on year. We did a 5-year forecast of our expenses and income, what we projected, and it got better as we went on throughout these 2 months. And we're pretty sure we have a clearer picture now than we did when we started. The first one was a bit of a guess, and they got refined as we spoke to more people, like the owner, for example, on the heating costs, the rates, etc. So this is all the kind of stuff we took to the trustees the second time. And of course, very important here to mention that Geshe Tashi was also consulted. Geshe Tashi is the resident teacher for Jamang London, maybe not much longer, of course, but he was helped Jamang lead from the very beginning. For those of you who don't know, he's very important and a person to ask about the Dharma developing in the UK for FPMT. He's like the mentor, if you like, for us in the UK. And this bottom paragraph here was interesting because I was unsure, like most of you are probably, about the area right at the beginning. I was thinking, Holbeck, I mean, don't know these very well, but I'm thinking, do I want to pursue this, to go to Holbeck? I'm not really sure. Maybe I should just abandon it, So I asked Geshe right at the beginning, back in January, and he was in India at the time, and he said, you should give serious thought to secure the building. The condition of the location will change. Yesterday, after I received your email, I did a short puja and I gave long thought about it, and I feel positive that the building could be good for the centre's future. So I was quite shocked by that, really. I was quite surprised. I just thought he's going to say, it's too far out, just look somewhere more central. But he came back really positive. I was like, okay, so then that gave me enthusiasm to continue. It's kind of why, you might see me enthusiastic about it, because it came from this initially. And I was very honest with the Geshe. I said, Geshe is a poor area. There's the managed area where the sex workers not far from here. It might be difficult this size of the building, but, there's other advice. I asked him a second time when he came last month. Said the cost is the first thing we have to check. Can we afford it? Second thing, the Dharma classes, how will they be affected? And then he said the time is right for us to move now. He thinks if we wait too much longer, then the energy will be lost, and it might take longer, to get this kind of enthusiasm going again. And obviously, location would change. So then, after all that, the trustees met just last Sunday morning, and we went through all this information, and we then felt the time is right now to ask Rinpoche, because Rinpoche has to approve all capital purchases for centres. And so I went home on Sunday night to see my mum, and she was watching some kind of ice dancing program on the TV, and I was just sat there writing to Rinpoche and thinking, we've thought this, and we put these photographs, and we put together a lovely report for him. David took some nice photographs I used, and Bob Charlton had some nice figures and some nice charts I used. I showed him everything, and then not even 2 days later, Lama Zopa replied with this. So here we go. Rinpoche checked and advised that yes, it comes out good to buy, but make sure to check the property thoroughly, especially that everything is legal. Be thorough, please. Then it needs a controlling and wrathful fire puja, and best is to do those on the property. Lama Monlam comes out very good to do those for the centre. He is in Italy sometimes. Rinpoche said it is also important to have good feng shui done for the property according to how you plan to use it. And that was the complete advice. So that was obviously, okay, we should definitely pursue this. So what this means is, now we've asked Rinpoche, it means that we should do everything we can possible to make it happen. That's kind of what it means to have this approval from Rinpoche. If it becomes unlikely for something, for example, legally we find out we can't get it for it even, or if the building is going to cost another 500,000 in work that we didn't think about, then we'd have to reassess. We haven't, the trustees haven't decided to purchase it yet, but this means that we're doing everything. This is our main focus now for the community to move forward. Does that make sense? So this is where we're going to talk about community consultation now, because now that we've done our work, it's time for us to hear your views on this. So the next steps then after this are, first of all, community consultation. Email in comments and suggestions and concerns. We're here to listen. So that's important. I want everybody to have a say in this, because this is a community project. It's not just the director and the trustees. This is your project too. You've created a lot of the causes for this to happen. So there's two ways you can do that. You can contact the trustees or myself. Here are the trustees: Andrew Asquith, David Midgley, Craig Skeet, Fiona Porteus, Jay Simpson, Ken Lunn, Rebecca Freer, Rowena Field and Unjin Park. And their email address, if you want to contact them, is trustees@jamangleads.co.uk. So feel free to write. Put the surname maybe in the subject header so you know who you're talking to. Or myself as a director@jamangleads.co.uk. Obviously you can, if you know us, then you can just talk to us on the phone or just speak, when the time is convenient for you. It's important, you share your concerns with us, because, trustees and I have had the same concerns probably, and some of them are still there. Some of them have been allayed with the reports that we've produced. So, and maybe you think of something we haven't thought of as well.
It's fair to say that when we had the first meeting, there was a lot of doubt from the trustees, and when we had the second meeting, all of the trustees who were there, apart from one person who abstained, we all came down in favour of it. So there's a very strong, once we'd considered it carefully and we'd had these reports done, there was a very clear feeling that we thought it was a good prospect.
Yeah, we had one person did vote against, 5 voted for, so yeah, and then a couple abstained.
The one person who voted against wasn't at the meeting, so we don't know, because some people changed their mind during the meeting.
Sure.
So all the people were there.
Yeah, I was quite surprised myself, the change, but that's because of the information we've done. We've done some research,
Yeah.
So that's the first step then, is to talk about it, and we'll have more meetings as we go along. And obviously the big next step is the fundraising. Whichever property we get, actually, it's probably going to be a similar situation. We'd have to raise another 100,000 to 150,000 so that the mortgage debt isn't too much of a burden. Wherever we go, actually, this is going to be the case. So fundraising round 2, it'd be good if you could pledge to write to 4 people, for example. We can provide you with a letter and a brochure, a business plan, for example, email or hard copies, and then, like Dagwa Rinpoche says here in his quote, don't be afraid to ask potential donors. He said that at a meeting Fiona and I had with him back in 2016. So, you just have to approach people and say, if you think they're likely to offer £1,000, for example, you think that's in their budget, you can be direct and say, skillfully in the letter, or if directly, could you offer £1,000 to this project? We're really close to getting it, and show them the images and where we're going to be. Or if they're a major donor, you could say maybe you'd like to contribute more. So if you need some help with that, I'm happy to help. And obviously we're going to still be doing the important thing here, keep creating the merit. It's good to remember, rejoice that every day since since Dagwa Rinpoche was here, we've done Tara pujas every week nearly to make this happen. Tara praises. We've done medicine Buddha pujas. We did Chittamani Tara retreats. We did Tara retreats with Paula, with Kane Gordon. We've done Geshe Tashi's every time we see her, the 21 Tara praises. We've done everything, that Rinpoche recommends for centres, and Dagwa Rinpoche, obviously, specifically. And our beautiful statues, we had those within a few months. So this is the causes, why it happened so quickly, I would suggest. So and dedicate any positive action actually that you do for the success of this project in our community. I'm aware that I've gone over a little bit. I did intend to just show a few slides about a possible development plan, but if you're interested I could skip that and we could just have a conversation, or I could explain it for another 5-10 minutes. What do you prefer?
Yeah.
Shall I go on?
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay, so this is just, I didn't consult anybody about this. I was just kind of throwing some ideas out there about what it might look like in over 20 years if we bought the building. So that means that it's just very preliminary. There's no concrete decisions in here whatsoever. It's all just initially to start some conversation. So don't feel any of this is set in stone already. Due to my experience with Nalanda, for example, I remember that their 25-year plan was divided into different phases, so I thought that might be helpful here to think about phases. Phase 1 to 5 years, develop the office part of the building. That's those two sections on the west side. Then phase 2, another 6 years, accommodation block and a larger Gompa. Phase 3, more accommodation, and then a dining area to cope with more numbers. So here's what I initially thought. Phase 1, phase 2 and phase 3, that's kind of just like the floor plan areas where we'd develop. So this is exciting because now we can think about the possibilities of what we can use this massive space for. So here's some suggestions. A Gompa, obviously, a smaller Gompa. When I say smaller Gompa, it would still be bigger than this one, but compared to the 15,000 square foot, it would be smaller. A bookshop and charity shop. There's a nice space in there that we could have a shop and a charity shop combined. It wouldn't be the kind of charity shop I would think that obviously is on a street front with a shop window. It'd be more like people who come to the centre could then purchase cheap items or donate cheap things, or we could do a swap shop for local parents, for example. I'm not sure. That's just one suggestion. Definitely cafe social area. This is something I've been rabbiting on about since I got here 2.5 years ago. We've got to have a cafe social space. In my mind, it's just as important as a Gompa. So really, so we share our experiences about our spiritual journey together in a Dharma environment, but just with a cup of coffee and a nice sofa. I think I found that very helpful in other centres, so I'm really keen for that. A library reading area. We have lots of space for that, Tim, and I'd like to have maybe a couple of study tables, so all these courses we're going to do, basic program, etc., so people can study there as well, get some study environment, conducive space. And rental spaces, so much opportunity for rental spaces. 6 offices downstairs we could rent out by the hour, rent out by a day, like Jamang Lunda do, for example, their Tara room, extra income for the centre. We could rent out to different charities over 3 months, 6 months, a year, for example, for a more reliable income, more income for the centre, so we don't have to keep relying on donations. The warehouse space, there's loads of opportunities to rent this out. Other businesses. The owner, for example, is interested in renting out the warehouse space from us already, because he has an overflow of clothing from his business, at least for the next 5 years until he can extend his own property. He said so. That would be another source of income for us till we get on our feet, So we looked at this in detail, about how we could use the space to generate some income for us, So then we could develop. Phase 2, a larger Gompa. So that big warehouse space, we could have a massive retreat in there, 200 plus people. Lama Zopa could do a month retreat. The Dalai Lama could come over, and do some teachings with us in there. We've got to think big,
Get in that large warehouse.
Yeah.
I initially thought 500, but it's probably more like 1,000.
You think?
That's
Well, okay.
Well, 15,000 square
Safely.
feet. How many square feet do you need for one person? You don't need 15 square feet per person.
Okay, right, okay.
Could you do that under existing planning rules?
Well, we'd have to look carefully. Like Lama Zopa says, we have to check all these things because of, fire exits. Can we feed those people?
Yeah, but the planning regime for that area is changing to mixed use, so we would be almost certain to get mixed use permission for the building.
Accommodation, you will have different fire regulations.
Yes, accommodation, yes.
To a business, so there are things you have to work through.
Yes, exactly, yeah.
And also, if you're dividing up, you've got to think a little bit about security between the different areas and different accesses to the building and those sort of things and controls of making sure.
It all gets a lot more complex. The project is going to be vastly complex, but it's a challenge, and
But I'm just going short term. If the present owner says, I want to hire that space, it it's a really nice feeling that you think, well, that's income coming in while we can go through the earlier phases. Of
Yes,
the smaller
exactly. That
phase.
was my thought. Exactly. Yes.
Well, it's definitely in interest
Yep.
to do that.
Yep.
It's a possible kind of negotiating chip that we
Right.
can use
Right.
to say, well, you know, we'll feel confident to take on the purchase if you're going to guarantee us.
Yeah, I think that's the kind of
Mm.
discussions to have, isn't it?
Mhm,
Legally to
mhm.
have, saying, will we do this, how many years, will you want, can we
Yeah.
discuss
But
that
they are
as
still
part of the
actively
deal?
using about a quarter of that warehouse
Yeah.
space.
Mm.
And even
Discuss-
that is a quite substantial
Yeah.
amount of income.
But if that's negotiated during the sale, is that
Yeah.
this is the agreement, you do this and you sign this at the same
Mhm,
time,
mhm.
then we have a kind of guarantee against
That's right.
worries about income. And it would be nice to have someone that you feel is a business that you can trust in terms of their financial needs
Mhm.
as well. So
Tim, you want to say something?
If we've got to raise another £150,000 or so, that could take a while.
Mm.
Is the owner prepared to wait that long?
Well, if he gets another offer at the asking price, I wouldn't have thought he'd wait, you know. But I mean, it's been on the market for 3 years. That's all I can say is, and nobody's interested yet.
So,
It's hard to say. If it sells, then obviously we're back to square one, aren't we? We'll keep looking. But it's still up for sale, so you know, we just keep going until it's.
Okay.
Well, I
Until we
think
see if we
could
can get
certainly
it,
ask him
yeah.
to give us first refusal on the building.
Yeah, I mean,
Yeah.
he's met us a couple of times. He's met us 3 times now, actually. We've been around 3 times, and he's happy for us to have it promoted because we're a charity and we're going to support the community. His business is still in that community, so you know, he wants to do that also. He's had offers that he refused, for example, because he didn't think they would be suitable for reasons I don't want to go
Yeah.
into, but yeah,
Ethical reasons.
ethical reasons. So
Yeah,
that
yeah.
you know, so that's something to consider.
Yeah.
yeah, that's good.
So then phase 3 would be extra accommodation, a larger dining area because we have to feed all these people that come. We could do things temporarily, of course, right from the beginning. We could
Yeah.
even just kit out the warehouse already within a month and have something. If Lama Zopa wanted to visit, we would do it. But it would temporary. So then the later phases are about making some of those fixtures more permanent so we can do more regular, larger events. That's my idea.
Is it like Lama Zopa would visit if he acquired
Well,
the centre?
from what I
Do
understand
that?
is that if a centre has been purchased, then Rinpoche likes to visit, to give it his blessing, and you know, so his holy feet could be on the property. I
Yeah,
think
yeah,
that's
yeah,
really
yeah.
important.
Could be done
Sounds
anyway.
good.
Yeah. So you know, it's worth buying just for that, isn't it?
Yes.
It's a good incentive.
And buying them soon, I think.
Keep buying them, right?
So here's just a summary. You know, some things I want to just throw out there to look at. Consultation with our members as we progress. This is very important. We'll have some sessions, like David suggested just earlier to me, about creating this development plan together. You know, we work on it together. That's important. Our core activities are still FPMT programs and visiting teachers, DB, FBT, basic program, you know, meditation 101. There's our heart curriculum, if you like. Master's program, right. Big, good. Our plans can change depending on our needs. We have to be very flexible. Income generation from all areas of the premises. That's something I was really keen for our property, wherever we go to, help us. You know, so we're not always thinking about the money. So it just generates, and we can not worry about
The
it.
size
then.
of the building, all the different kinds of space that are in
Right.
it are very positive in terms of, you know, if we creatively think about how we can use those, all the different areas can be creating some kind of income and
Yes,
put that all
yes.
together, and it's pretty.
Areas at the same time as well, you know.
Yeah,
Right.
yeah, that's right.
Retreats in-house, we don't have to rent. Maybe Aquath we can do in-house. Maybe it's just the accommodation is difficult to begin with, but maybe some dormitory spaces we could put in, who knows. But we could do more, you know, things like nungnes, for example, or just weekend retreats over Christmas, you know, if we can have some accommodation in the space. Regular opening hours and resident volunteers, that would be a big change for us, you know, opening regularly. Therefore we'd have to be manned reception, manned shop, cafe, so that's quite a challenge, but you know. Community
If you're a
out.
resident volunteer,
Huh?
it's much easier, isn't it?
Yes, yeah, exactly, yeah.
What are the prospects of getting a resident teacher? How would
Resident
you go about
teacher is something
organising?
we've thought about for a while, isn't it? It's true, it's come up on my mind, especially now that Tashi is thinking of moving away. And, you know, I've been in touch with Jamang London to just try and suggest, you know, that we should think nationally about how we think about a resident teacher here. Not just London has the burden of the whole teacher. Actually, there may be 3 centres in the UK, Landudry and London should think about contributing to a Geshe resident teacher collectively and then sharing that burden of pensions and mortgage, etc. Or it could be that they want their own because they've got enough programme to cope with it, and we just have our own Geshe for the north. That could be one for the south, one for the north. So there's options, yeah.
Yes.
We're open to all options now, especially as we're going to have more place for the teacher to live, for example. And then more activities in the same time in different areas of the building. This is something I mentioned already. That's something we can't do at the moment, you know. And then just to wrap up then, you know, this is a photograph we went to in the snow when it was, that, you know, the beast from the east came, and this is, David very kindly drove us in the snow very carefully. This is the west side of the building where all the, you know, the big windows are, the light comes in. And this is a quote from Lama Yeshe. You often hear this quote from Lama Yeshe about think big. I'll just read it for those people who might not be able to read it at home. That's Lama Yeshe, had a big vision for this centre, which was talking about Chen Reisig Institute in Australia, one of the first FPMT centres. In 1974, he had told them, think big, think big. So, you know, I think we're fulfilling that with 33,000 square foot.
Are there many entrances to it, or is that just one? That
Entrances.
The warehouse?
So yeah, there's this entrance here, which you can see on the bottom corner. That's the entrance to the office side. There's another entrance just past the blue car on the left, fire exit. And then there are 3 other warehouse entrances on the other side of the road. I don't think there's anything on this adjacent side, but on the opposite side, there's 2 entrances there. Large warehouse entrances, you know, with the shutters.
And presumably it's got some kind of burglar alarm system in there now.
Yes, there is an alarm system. The heating is in. Yeah.
I was impressed when I was looking at some of those shots. The upstairs didn't seem to be any water penetrating. I always look at tiles. And
Right. Yeah. There is one.
Thank you for
There is
3
one
years. That
area. It's true.
indicates the condition of the building is surprisingly good, I would say.
Yeah.
Yeah, we could get in there already and do
And that
something
shot
pretty
from above
quickly.
looked quite good, actually.
Well, that's why I was asking how long it had been on the market, thinking
Right.
it's been emptied, but if you say that he's actually been using it and keeping it warm,
Yeah. Yeah. Exactly. Yeah.
it doesn't deteriorate so quickly.
Where's the
That's right.
school?
Right. He's had the heating on regularly. Yes. Yeah.
There's industry along here, this road
On the
left
left,
side of
right.
Ingram Road.
Mm.
And then there's-
The school is just at Crosby Street, the side of Crosby
So
Street.
those trees, is it? Well, there's not-
That's the school. Yeah. That's the primary school there. Yeah.
There's greenery there. that's
It might
nice.
have been an old Google photograph, but I can't remember the trees myself. But, yeah. And then the residential street on Rydale Place. Is that Rydale? Rydale?
Looks like it.
Right, place.
Quite a nice street.
Those
So-
first 3
yeah.
rooms we can clearly see.
So I'm sorry I've gone on a bit longer than expected. It's just 10 to 7. So questions then. Some of the trustees are here also to help if they can answer questions. What are your concerns? And obviously if you want to go away and think about it, I'll send out an email later tonight with the details as well to everybody. And there'll be links there to this information. So if you want to think about it and email me later. But if you have any things you want to say now, please do.
I've only got really one concern,
Hmm.
and it's just distance from the centre, whether people will be bothered to come down to make the effort to get on a bus and go down
Mm,
there,
yes.
rather than having the
Right.
ease of accessing the centre.
Right. Yeah, I talked to one person on the Monday night class, for example, and he says, I said to him, it's unlikely we're going to be in the city centre for our budget, you know, and he says, well, but then I have to get the train in and a bus, you know, and the bus is unreliable. And I said, well, you know, it's what we can afford, you know. We've been out the city centre before, Armley and Hare Hills, you know.
And I think that's probably the main concern. I mean, the potential developments are fantastic, but the access, I suppose, and the perception that people have of Olbeck, which may change once South Bank is developed, although that won't be touched by the South Bank development. It may, you know, but people's perception of Olbeck and access and getting on another bus,
Yes,
I think,
yes,
will be
right.
drawbacks.
Yeah.
Holbeck's okay during the day, but Holbeck's a different place at night, and I know people that live there.
Which area of Holbeck you mean? Is it around around here?
Yeah, there's patches all over. Have you been in touch with the local constabulary to find out about crime?
Well, you can read this crime figures actually on the internet already. I think it was something like, Andrew and I looked at the beginning, it was like 6, different months obviously, different crime figures, but there was, I'll make it up if I can't remember exact figure now, but it was way, way more crime around here where we are now than Holbeck, around here. Which you wouldn't think, would you? You feel more safer here. But that's interesting, isn't it?
Yeah,
Yeah.
it's probably people getting drunk in the nightclubs and the pubs and things in the centre of town.
Right.
Main crime
The
area.
managed area, if you look here, is where these roundabouts are going on the north here, and somebody did say to me, you know, they would feel unsafe walking through there, but you don't have to walk through that area, of course.
Sorry,
You know.
which roundabout?
Can you point? I can't point. You can. Fern knows Lee's better than I do.
You've got pointy sticks.
I know that quite well. Please do.
Oh, right, okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
But it is a managed district, like the police.
Right.
That's what police about.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So I had lunch with one of the members of the charity called Basis, who works with the sex workers there, looking after the women, making sure they're safe and protected. And she said, actually, you know, it's safer in that part of Leeds than other parts of Leeds that are not managed because the police are always there, looking after the women primarily. Right. So there are lots of areas in Leeds that you wouldn't go to on a night because, you know, there's no police presence and they're very dodgy. But the managed area isn't one of them, she would suggest, because of that reason, because it's controlled. You know. So there's lots of local opposition, I have to say, to this area, managed area. And it has a very bad press, actually, especially the BBC documentary, you may remember. The charities that work there have a very negative opinion of this documentary because it put it in quite a negative light. So
I believe the police are pleased with how it's gone there.
really? Okay, I didn't know that. Right, yes, yeah. So there's no doubt.
Quite a lot of terraced housing in the area, isn't there?
Yeah, there's no doubt it's a poor area, you know, there's no doubt about that. A lot
It's
social
one of-
exclusion,
Yeah, it's one of
etc.
the historic areas of
Mm.
the city. Because it was, as the map shows really, like it's so close to the river and the train lines.
Mm.
It had a lot of the Victorian factories and warehouses and stuff like that. So it is one of the more, I guess, deprived areas of the
Yes,
city.
absolutely. There's no doubt about that, for sure.
But with it being so close to the city centre, like yes, the South Bank Regen project isn't near us, but the impact of that is going to keep spreading outside the actual strip.
We'd hope so, yes. I mean, it seems that as far as I understand, the South Bank Regeneration Project, this is Water Lane, I think, here.
Yeah.
So it's kind of this area here, and some very expensive apartments here that, you know, the lawyers and people who can have a city apartment and live outside the city. And then it kind of, this is that the industrial areas here, there's Dunelm here, the managed area, and then this is Holbeck proper, but this is called the Holbeck Urban Village. I'm not sure, maybe here.
It's more
here.
that bit, yeah.
There's Temple Works here, for example, that property that went quite cheaply at auction. I don't know who bought it.
Yeah, from there right up to
You could buy it for £1.
Dewsbury Road.
And if you go from this side, see we're just about here, aren't we, Germany? So if you walk from this side here, it's probably, I would suggest, 15-20 minutes walk. If you come from the other side of the station, it'll take about 25
Well,
minutes.
the south entrance takes you straight onto Water Lane.
Yeah, so if you
Yeah,
go
it
to the
does.
south entrance, then it's reasonably quick. You know.
And you're not having to go near, well,
Look
depending
at
which
the
side
bus
of,
routes, I think, quite
depending where you're going out, please, you're not having to go near the
Bus
manchester.
line.
Right,
Yeah,
right.
on the buses through there.
Like I said, like Ricky said, you know, during the day, safe in the evenings, but in the evenings, you know, you'd be careful wherever you went.
Yeah.
Isn't it? But it's some areas you would want to avoid. It's true. There's no denying that, right?
Well, if the bus outside, that would help.
Topmoor side, I think, is where the buses go.
Yeah,
isn't
it's
it?
this main street. You'd have to walk towards the kind of Topmoor side, the park there.
That's the one that comes down from the
Um,
junction.
I'm not sure I'll get it right.
Go to the junction there, go straight up.
I think it's this one.
That's
here,
Topmoor
isn't it?
side, yeah.
This is
that's
where
it.
the bus route is.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And so you'd have to walk down the street here. There's
So
some
that's
shops
a-
and things here.
By the look of it, it's got terraced housing on top of that. So you walk
Yeah,
down-
behind that, it's all terraced houses. Yeah, and then just behind that that blue motorway at the bottom there is Elland Road Football.
Yeah.
You know, and the police headquarters. So transport, it's if you're driving, it's perfect. Any other questions,
In that
concerns?
respect- sorry, I've just realised something else.
Hmm.
In that respect then, with Elland Road being that close, you've also got the park and ride, if you need it.
Right. Okay. I don't know how you get across the motorway though. That's the thing. I don't know. I guess there's
You
some
go under-
footbridges.
There's some paths
There are some,
underneath the
yeah.
motorway because they
Oh, really?
they
Okay.
chopped off Holbeck Main Road where the
Right.
centre used to be.
Okay. Okay.
And you've got like a really strange, like a 9-foot height of the motorway.
Okay.
The cars aren't allowed under it, but you can walk through and cycle through very safely. Then.
This is a bit comparable. We kept coming across this. It's a bit comparable to when Germany London, for example, moved from Finsbury Park to Elephant and Castle. So Elephant and Castle, 20
Back
years
there.
ago, was all these 16 exits into this big subway. You remember, it was a very scary place to be.
Yeah.
And some of the trustees at that time, Tashi remembers very clearly that some of the trustees were really against it, and they resigned because they couldn't bear to go South London. And some of them really found it difficult, you know, to think about the financial burden of owning the courthouse. So some of them resigned because of that. Fortunately, none of our trustees resigned over this, so I'm very pleased about that. But you know, it just shows, you know, moving to this kind of phase is quite, you know, it's quite demanding emotionally, I think.
London people tend to are more used to going to large distances in the city.
Yeah.
And they have the tube, of course.
Yeah, on the tube, exactly.
yes,
Yes,
yes.
it's a culture which doesn't really exist. in
But people, you didn't used to go to Elephant. It was too scary, Elephant. They used to get the tube at Kennington and walk back, which I used to do when I lived.
There's a long dish shop within
Is it?
about
Okay.
50
Okay.
metres of that place anyway, isn't there? So
Yeah, there's a few
shops
nice
and
shops
things
there.
like that.
Yeah, yeah.
But yeah, it is interesting, quite comparable, sort of as near a comparison as you could get. I think.
Right.
In
There's
terms
even
of
a
the sort of
post
demography.
office functioning in the area not far away. So I mean, it gives you an idea. There's people. If there's still a post office there, there's a lot of people
It's an
living there.
established community.
Oh yeah,
Yeah,
absolutely.
yeah. And that's, I think that's the.
It's
You also
not
got
the way
Ace Art
centre down near the old
Tattoo
brewery.
Studio, don't you?
Yes, this is not far from the river, right? This Sri Ratna,
Yeah.
they rent a space on the 3rd floor, I think. This
Oh.
triangle building, right?
A friend of mine said they want that relocated.
Are they really? Okay, yeah. There was another Buddhist centre actually we kept following around when we looked at properties. Said, oh, you're another Buddhist centre wanting to buy. I just hoped it wasn't, you know, the.
Indeed.
So,
My wife volunteered at the school, I think Incan Bread School, for a while.
Oh, really?
help
Okay.
Hearing the children read. And she was saying it's a very mixed area, so lots of people coming from ethnic minority backgrounds whose
Yes.
English isn't their first language,
mm.
and they needed that extra help in school with their English. So.
Do any of the trustees that are here, we have 3 trustees here, want to say anything about the process we went through? Or you're not obliged to, but if you want to say anything.
What about, do you want to say anything about the school? Yeah.
A visit to the school engine.
I said, well, I sent my child to a school in Headingley, so I was actually very surprised just to hear that the pupils in that school have 48 different languages as their first language.
Wow.
Oh, right. Right. Yeah, so obviously the local community is not going to have much interest in Buddhism in the first place, but well, there are a number of ways the head teacher suggested for us to get mixed in with the community. For example, the school has a lot of ESOL opportunities. Well, if there are any volunteers in our community to go out to help for the parents and the children. And also, I don't know well, but some members in our community may have interest in teaching meditation or singing or dancing or whatever to the children there. And well, the one thing raised actually by my friend is that there are a lot of Christians from Africa in the community. So how those Christians will perceive a Buddhist center in their place is one thing a friend of mine raised with great interest. But according to the head teacher, those Christians again need much space for them to gather. So they approach the school or other places in the area which they can't really which they couldn't quite afford, or the places couldn't quite meet their needs. So, well, if we can be a little bit more creative, there will be a lot of opportunities for us to make our presence felt by them in a very positive light. And, well, Bob, although we were both very overwhelmed with the prospect, but, well, our impression was the new location is going to provide us with huge number of opportunities to practice, for us to practice generosity, even though the shape or the manner of generosity, the practice of generosity may not be of the kind of first choice we would make ourselves, but it will gradually change. So yeah, hopefully we will get along with people there.
David, you want to say something?
No, I just wanted to ask whether we've had an opportunity to talk to, there's two other sort of community organisations nearby. So there's a community centre, and then there's the Health for All project.
Yes, we haven't, as far as I know, nobody's contacted those yet. We ran out of time with that one, but yeah, that would be an important one. St Matthews would be an important one to contact, that community centre there.
Mm-hmm. The Health for All project is one of the main sort of community development charities in Leeds, and it's just down the road from Clydeworth. So
Okay.
that's
right.
Tony Herman said that they are very much people to talk to
Nice,
about
nice. Yeah.
what are the needs of
Right,
the community and how could we integrate with that.
I mean, as I went along, I realised, some of these reports that we'd done about the local area were actually very small, because as I say, this vote for the neighbourhood plan, where only 2,500 people could vote on it. That was the neighbourhood, so it's a very small area. Our catchment area at Gemang Leeds has always been much wider than that. We go as far as Hull and Liverpool, and Cumbria and Scotland. So we shouldn't forget that, actually, that people are going to come from far away as usual to our centre. But our regular classes, that's what we were unsure about. Right.
Yeah. I mean, I think more and more I kind of come to the view that in terms of continuing to provide the benefit that we are providing, I can't see any great reason why it wouldn't be practical to continue to hire a space in the centre for those beginner meditation classes
yes,
and lifetime meditations. But where it's people who are already sort of serious Dharma students, which is most of our other programme, I think we won't lose very many people moving a little bit further out. People still
hopefully
come there.
not, right.
And obviously it gives an opportunity for us to develop what I've been, sort of looking for years now. Can we find a way to deliver more in-depth and more advanced, programs and longer sort of, 1-2 week residential courses, retreats. This building offers a great opportunity for that, and there's really no problem there. If people are coming for a weekend or a week or a fortnight, the extra distance is neither here nor there, really. So I think in many ways it really will benefit us in terms of delivering the Dharma itself, but also I think the local community, it's not really a sort of target for coming very much to
not for basic program.
But there's all sorts of ways in which we could, as Unjan said, we can be of benefit to that community, and we can be if they're struggling to be able to afford rented space at the moment. The scale of the building, we could offer rented space very cheaply. It would still be useful income to us.
Yes.
So I think there's a lot of positives in that way.
There's also, I was just thinking like preschool staff or playthings or something running in one of the rooms or something like that. Cause we could actually almost offer space to. You said there were community groups working there that may want to have a place where they can bring people together to have a meeting once a week or whatever. There are things like that that we could do. It would bring a little bit of income, but it would also be actually us giving to the community as well. Which I can see that working.
Regarding that, we may not be able to expect much income in those particular area, because for example, more than 60% of pupils are dependent on free meals, school free meals, and the head teacher suspects a lot of children are not fed at home in the evening. So the people who are desperate to have a little space for gathering may not be able to afford the rent themselves. So providing the space itself perhaps might happen as a kind of a free offering to the community. That was the impression I got from the conversation.
I think we're going to have to, I agree with you, we'd have to offer the more in-depth classes to tempt people to come make that extra distance for the journey. So that would be, if we could run something like the basic programme, I think we would get people more likely to come a distance. But then again, we would need the teacher to deliver that class.
I've just looked at the buses and getting to from Great Wilson Street, just up here, and the total distance, including walking, time is 23 minutes.
I'm going to have to go.
Yeah, so we're going to wrap up because we said we're just doing an hour, so we're just over 7:05. So,
Tell me what number the buses are.
so like I said, now this is now the time for consultation. So please do contact us if you have any questions. I'll email out details tonight and then over the weekend on Facebook, etc. And it's great to have Rinpoche's blessing on it. Rinpoche, we share Rinpoche's merit, and his merit is vast, his generosity is vast, so that he gets resources for his projects very easily. So I'm hoping this will help our project now that Rinpoche is behind it.
I think it should give us a lot of confidence.
Right.
It's a very, very sort of clear indication that
it's a very exciting
we're on
time.
the right track.
So let's just do a little dedication together then, and then we'll wrap up. So we'll just dedicate that, all these inspiring plans that we have for our new phase, our new evolution here in the city, may be of the best benefit to others, in whatever way that is. Continuing to provide Dharma classes, a place for people to learn about their minds, a place for people to just be peaceful and calm for a moment. We dedicate that all this may happen so that the sentient beings who need help will be able to find it. And all the merit we create, may that be causes for us to become fully awakened ourselves to help sentient beings. Thank you all very much, everybody. Enjoy your weekend. Thank you.